Ireland's star-studded audience of sports people and the announcement of the BBC Sports Personality for 1997, the Sports Review of the Year on BBC One tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Back to tonight and it's Match of the Day in 20 minutes after the news and sport.
Michael Pritchard was deliberately run over and killed by someone who stole his van during a delivery round. Passers-by tried to stop the getaway, but two men helped the killer to escape. Who and why? And a surprisingly persuasive man who tempts women into his car. He's now wanted for rape. So far this year, Crimewatch viewers have helped solve one case in every 3. Please help once again. That's Crimewatch UK, BBC One, Tuesday at 9:30.
Following the trial of 3 teenagers accused of murdering 3 8-year-old boys, an acclaimed documentary questions their convictions on BBC Two in just over 5 minutes. Here on BBC One now, a roundup of the day's news and sport with Michael Burke and Adam Minot.
There have been riots in Londonderry after a loyalist march. It was the worst outbreak of street violence in Northern Ireland since the IRA ceasefire. Tony Blair's trying to head off another rebellion over benefit cuts for the disabled. And 40 Hunt protesters have been arrested after a demonstration in Hampshire. Good evening. Troops were ordered back onto the streets of Londonderry tonight after the worst outbreak of rioting in Northern Ireland since the latest IRA ceasefire began. Mobs of nationalists hijacked and burned vehicles and stoned the security forces. They're objecting to a march by the Protestant apprentice boys.
Shipquay Street in the centre of Londonderry should be a busy shopping area. This afternoon it was the scene of a pitched battle as the police came under attack from a sustained barrage of petrol bombs, bricks and bottles. At one stage, RUC officers moved forward to disperse Catholic demonstrators, but the crowd responded by hijacking a van which they set alight just yards from police lines. Soon the scene in the Guildhall Square was mayhem, with buses burning and petrol bombers doing their utmost to attack the RUC. Catholic residents had wanted a parade by the Protestant apprentice boys diverted away from the Diamond in the centre of the city. When mediation attempts failed, the police allowed the parade to go ahead, erecting barriers in an attempt to create a neutral zone between the two sides.
Well, in many ways we're witnessing complete madness. The policing decisions have been disastrous for the town. It's a copybook example of how not to police a parade and a protest together.
All week we were desperately trying to get a resolution to the problem, genuinely trying, and we were prepared to go the extra mile to try and do that. But I think unfortunately, and we have to say this, is that there were people, I think, who had another agenda. If they didn't have a go at us, they were certainly going to have a go at RUC.
After some rioters attempted to burn down a bank, the RUC moved in, clearing most people away from the city centre. 3 police officers were injured during the disturbances.
I would say that we were placed in a situation of no win. We weren't going to please everybody today. The situation that has transpired this evening wasn't as a direct result of the policing operation. It was as the result of some people coming onto the streets to cause mayhem and damage.
For the first time in months, the army were brought out of their barracks here to move wrecked vehicles and support the police. It may be Christmas, but today this city seemed lacking in any goodwill. Mark Devonport, BBC News, Derry.
Tony Blair has insisted that the government will ensure that the sick and disabled are properly cared for. His comments follow the leaking of a document suggesting ministers are considering cuts to disability benefits. The document has led to threats of another rebellion by some Labour MPs. Our political correspondent Lance Price reports.
Activists for disabled rights demonstrated their power to mobilise public support 3 years ago while campaigning for better access to public transport. They accused the Tories of ignoring their needs, and in an effort to avoid more scenes like this now, the government is indicating that its approach to welfare reform won't be punitive or driven by the need to make cuts.
We will always make sure that people who need to be are properly protected. The Labour Party always has and always will. What is important, however, is that we give opportunities for people who want to get off welfare, off benefit, into work, so that we don't end up spending more and more and more money on social security, but try and get the investment we need into the schools and hospitals.
But the ever-increasing bill